for a lot of people, being outside is something that causes them to be mindful. And some people consider a hike, a run, things like that as meditation. And it certainly works for a lot of people.
Swimming.
Say?
Swimming.
Okay.
I mean in the sea, not in the pool.
Huh?
When we are surrounded with many people, like for example, if there is many people who are on the coffee, like with friends, we can often see a person that it's not included in the process, I would say, and that's most of the moments when you're not mindful, when you think you're distracted or something like that.
Okay. So generally, throughout the day, most of us, and I'll speak for myself particularly, find that there are more times we are not mindful than there are that we are mindful. It's just part of our normal routine and our habits. So part of mindfulness is trying to not just break bad habits, but create the new habits. And there has been scientific studies that have shown some of the impacts of mindfulness if you can start to really practice it, even if you don't know if it's helping. And we'll talk a little bit about the science in a minute. First, I'm going to pass around in each direction a bag. I want everybody to take one raisin. If you're allergic to raisins, I'm sorry. Don't take one. There are a few cranberries in there if you want to pick through and find a cranberry. Please just take one and then hold it and then pass it on. If you hate raisins, you don't have to eat this. But I am going to ask everybody to go through a process with this raisin. Just do what you're comfortable with. And we are going to try mindfulness similar to, I'm sorry, I forget your name, you did with the coffee. Darka. That did with the coffee. We're going to do a mindfulness exercise with something we all do every single day, which is eating, right? Everybody here eats every day unless you're on a special diet. So it's something that is not outside the box for anybody, right? We all eat every day. I, for one, am a person who loves to cook. I love to go out. I talk about food often. I'm very food focused, but I'm not a mindful eater. I stand over my kitchen sink and eat my food quickly, looking out the window, and then run off to do the next thing. You have to remind yourself to sometimes be mindful. Does everybody have one? Almost?
Here's the surplus of it.
That's surplus. You have one? Okay. So this is a good activity to try, like I said, because it's such a common activity. All right, so we're going to start with the raisin in your hand, just like this. Just hold it. And before you even look at it, sense and become aware of what the raisin feels like in your hand. Can you feel it? Does it have a weight? Some of you might feel it, some of you might not. Just whatever is your sensation, become aware of that sensation. Look at it. So now you're using your sight and become aware of what it looks like. You probably don't look at a raisin very often. So look at it enough to become very familiar with this raisin. What does your raisin look like? Now take it between your thumb and your index finger and just a little bit move your fingers on it so that you get a sense of touch and become aware of just what does it feel like. What does this raisin feel like? What are the sensations, the touch sensations specifically, that you get from this raisin? Is it bumpy? Is it hard? Is it soft? Whatever words come to your mind. Okay, now I'm pretty sure you haven't listened to a raisin, but I'm going to ask you to put the raisin to your ear and maybe even squish it a little. Don't ruin it. Do you hear anything? We have to all be quiet. What sounds do you get from a raisin? Be aware of that sound for a moment. Okay, now smell the raisin. What does it smell like to you? Does it smell like you expect it to? Does the aroma bring something to your mind? Just become aware and consider, what is the smell of that raisin? Now, set the raisin just against your lips. Don't eat the raisin yet. Just set the raisin against your lips and move it a bit. And what does that feel like? Is the sensation of the raisin on your lip different in any way than the sensation of the raisin in your fingers? If not, become aware of that. If so, how is it different? Just be aware of that difference. So now, take the raisin and just place it on your tongue. Go ahead, place it on your tongue, don't eat it. Become aware of that sensation. For some of you, there will be quite a sensation because your own body will react to the presence of the raisin on your tongue. Become aware whether you have a sensation or not of that sensation. What does it feel like on your tongue? Do you get taste yet? What sensations do you have? Just become aware of them. Now move it over and bite the raisin and become aware of those sensations. Does it taste as you expected? Is there more than one taste? Describe the taste to yourself. Do they remind you of anything? When was the last time you had a raisin? Just become aware of whatever sensations you have. And then chew and swallow the raisin mindfully. Become aware as you swallow, as you chew. What do your teeth feel like? What does it feel like in your throat? Just become aware of those sensations. So, unless you have done that exercise before, which some of you have, that's probably the most attention you have ever given to a raisin. And it feels silly in a room with people listening to a raisin, right? The value in that is simply the recognition that we don't take the time to be mindful and present even with something so important as eating. Now, it's a big step, perhaps, for some of you, to being mindful of eating a raisin, to being able to use mindfulness to have less running mind, or less anxiety, or be more present with your family. But that's an important link to make, because it is the exact same thing. And practicing something as simple as that exercise can help you learn to be more mindful with the things that are harder. It's easy to be mindful with a raisin. It's hard to be mindful with your husband when you're mad, or your teacher when she's unfair, or the traffic. That's hard. The raisin's easy, so it's a good place to start. Anybody have any comments on being mindful with a raisin? What was that like?
The sound was interesting. I've
Never listened to a raisin. Yeah? Who knew? Anybody else? Any other comments on being mindful with food in general? Does anyone here eat mindfully regularly?
No, I'm texting, I'm reading my phone while I'm eating
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
do.
Actually, for me, I had a very special connection. Maybe I still have with the food, and I really love eating. But I think that I eat mindfully because I took a cranberry because I prefer them, and they reminded me on a summer forum where I attended, and they were super cheap there. And I was eating a lot of them, so that reminded me of the summer that I spent in that forum.
That's lovely. That's great.
Yeah, and it's like that with most of the time. Food reminds me on something that happened somewhere.
That's great.
It's like a smell when you really are mindful about it.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
It was, for me, it was interesting how the raisin was different in different senses. It was small on my hand, like a dot. It was huge in my mouth.
Yeah.
It was soft and not slippery, but gladka. Smooth
Smooth,
under
okay.
my fingers, but rough under my on my
interesting,
lips.
yeah.
So that was totally unexpected gain
Yeah.
from this exercise.
And it's the kind of nuance you can only notice in a raisin if you eat it mindfully. So if you link that to other things in your life, how many nuances are we missing in our relationships, in our books, in our meals, whatever we're doing? Because we're missing nuances if we're not doing it mindfully. Maybe. It's a possibility, right? If you do a mindfulness or meditation retreat, maybe some of you have. Has anyone done a retreat, a silent retreat? Does retreat translate? Does everyone know what I mean by a retreat?
No?
Can you explain like a camp?
U ovom U ovom smislu to je više kao povlačenje negdje van grada. Ovaj silent retreat znači da ne govore se to vrijeme ostane.
You can do 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 10 day, 30 day. Some people go for a year. So if you do them, you are silent the whole time, and you eat silently, even if you're in a room with 100 other people. You eat mindfully every single meal, and it's for myself, having done them, it was the thing I most feared. Going into a 9-day retreat where I can't talk and I have no breathing, the thing I feared was sitting with 100 people and eating mindfully. And it's hard. So the raisin's easy, but try this at home. You can't take a huge thing, like don't do a whole meal. Try to eat part of your meal mindfully. Say to yourself, I'll do 60 seconds, 1 minute of mindful eating, and see if that's easy or hard. It can be quite difficult, more so than it seems. Yeah?
Thank you for saying that it was difficult and that you had fear, because for me even the raisin was difficult.
Okay, yeah, see, that's a good point, and I should point that out, that what may seem easy to one is not to another. That's a good point. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it can be really hard.
Does mindful for you mean slow?
Mm.
I don't, yeah.
No, it means paying attention.
Okay.
So the difference, just as an example, I'll use the raisin. I often eat a mix of nuts and raisins, and I don't pay any attention I don't even know which ones I've thrown in my mouth. It has maybe 7 or 8 different things in it. I make it at home, I don't think about it, and I keep it in the refrigerator, I grab a handful and I walk away. I have no idea if I even ate a raisin, if it's in there. So the difference is I paid attention to every aspect before and during and even after eating it. That's the difference. It's the attention. Another important thing in paying attention to me is the non-judgmental, because it's easy not to be judgmental with a raisin, right? But it's not easy when you're trying to be present with something difficult, with anger, sadness, fear. Then the judgment comes in, and that becomes very hard for all of us. Let's see. So I was going to just briefly talk a little bit about the history